Without people in your life that tell you what you need to hear, you will not have an accurate image of how you stand in society. There's many times where we are surrounded by people that are easy to be around, people that tell us what we want to hear. And a lot of the time, because of that, we don't get what we need to get. We don't actualize our potential. Because those people are not telling us the things that we need to improve on or the things that we're already good at. Accurate self-appraisal is one of the essential non-cognitive skills that determine success in life. An accurate self-appraisal essentially requires you to know how most people should be, or how gracefully one should act. And second, you need to have people around you that are telling you how you need to be, or how you should be. And their value and their wisdom should be something that is predominant in the way that they approach life and also have conversations with any person, including yourself. Without people that tell you what you need to hear, you're never really going to know where you stand. And the reason is because we can get into situations in life where we believe something about ourselves. A skill that we have, a talent, a one-up on the rest of society, potentially. And if we stay on our own heads and don't actually get feedback, then that could be some random fallacy that we've come up with. Some untruth about our own life and about our own skill set. There was a quote in Living and Dying with Grace, which is a book that I use a lot to determine whether or not I'm being a graceful person in my life, something that I value a lot. It said, live up to the expectations of other people. And for a lot of you, this might sound like some bad advice, because you might be saying, well, what if that person thinks I'm this way, and why should I care about my image to them if they're not even a part of my life, whatever. Yeah, I agree with you, right? I make these videos all the time, and I do care about what people think, because I want them to get a sense of grace in the way that I approach my conversation topics and the way that I give advice. But at the same time, if I was so self-conscious all the time, I wouldn't make these videos, So to a degree, you have to not care about what people are saying, what people are doing. But, for instance, if someone holds you up to a certain standard, like in my life, if someone says to me, to Rob, you're a charismatic person, and I don't live up to that standard, I'm selling myself short, because I know that I'm capable of doing that. I have already indicated or showed to this person that I'm capable of doing this thing, and that is why they're saying this about me. So for me to not actualize that, for me to go out of my way to say, no, I'm not that way, and I will not be that way because this person is telling me that I should be that way, then we're kind of shooting ourselves in the foot. Because being a charismatic person at the end of the day is not a bad thing, right? And just because someone expects it of us doesn't mean that we should run away from it. And this obviously puts a lot of burden on you. When people are saying hopefully positive things about you, it's something you have to live up to, for sure. And it requires a lot of practice in the background, a lot of character assessment consistently. But at the end of the day, the result is you being the best possible person you can be. Now, on the other end, if people in your life are saying things that are negative about you, there's one of two ways that you can go about it. Obviously, one is you assume that what they're saying is inaccurate because their assessment of life is not as accurate as yours. They're not observing the details as intricately as you are, and so their opinion only matters so much to you. However, if you have deemed prior that their observation skills and the grace with which they live their life is the type of grace that you want, and they're telling you something that you should fix, a negative quality that you have, then I say to you that it is your duty to go and tame that negative quality, and at the very least to know that you have it. A realistic self-appraisal is not just something that tells you, hey, these are the things that you're great at, and you can go and frolic in the woods and be happy and have this huge ego. It also means that when you are given something to look at that you have done in your life that isn't so great, that you take some time to fix that thing. Easily the harder thing. A lot of people have difficulty accepting compliments, but a lot more people have difficulty accepting criticism. Now, what is the benefit of having this realistic self-appraisal? Well, in one sense, you get a better idea of who you are and where you stand in society. But in another sense, by knowing yourself, and this is always the paradoxical reality of these videos, by knowing yourself, you know society better, you know individuals better, and you will know very clearly whether or not someone has a realistic self-image of themselves, just by observing them. If you go through the daily rigor of trying to be more realistic about the skills that you have. There is something to be said about the fact that we do not have all the skills that we need right now. And the way that we are right now does not mean that we're going to be that way in the next 5 years, the next 10 years. Not by any stretch. We have the ability to manifest whatever the hell we want in life, period. There are very few circumstances that are going to take your freedom away from you more than you telling yourself that you are incapable and never will be capable of a certain thing. So I'm not saying to give into the mentalities of the people around you when they are trying to convey to you that this is something you will never be good at. It is to say that it's something that you need to improve at currently, which in itself is a deterrent for a lot of people. You're gonna suck at things. You're gonna really suck at things when you first start them off, unless you have some innate ability in that thing. And a realistic self-appraisal does not mean that you go and because you suck at that thing now, that you should just stop doing it, period. There are situations that I've heard about, and particularly in music departments at schools, where professors will go up to someone and say, listen, you're tone deaf. You have no sense of rhythm. And obviously this is scoffed at and looked down on. But the way that I see it is, if someone is telling you something that's abrasive, that's difficult to swallow, they're telling you for one of two reasons. One reason is that they don't have a realistic self-appraisal. And the other thing is that they actually mean it and they're just trying to help you out. I would go with the latter most of the time. But again, you'll be able to see whether or not you're going to accept someone's advice based on how you feel about them. If you like someone because they have been kind to you and respectful to you, you're obviously going to be more likely to accept their advice. If someone's being an asshole to you and the people around you and generally makes a fool out of themselves, then their advice is probably not always applicable. That's not to say that you can't learn from hypocrites and that you shouldn't. Don't make all the mistakes yourself. Look around. A wise man once told me when I asked him, hey, I get bored of social situations and I want to leave. He said to me, sit around for a little bit longer, Tarab. Take a look at how people interact. You'll learn a lot more that way. And so I've started to stick around a little longer, and lo and behold, I have learned some things about human beings, and I continue to learn things about human beings and myself through the process. So there's some food for thought for a realistic self-appraisal. You got to spend the time to know what you're capable of, like what I'm doing now, you know, just go out in the woods. I know that I'm capable of going and giving myself love, you know. This shows it to me. My action shows it to me. But you also need to have people around you that you respect that are willing to tell you the things that you need to hear. Because if you're not, you're just going to end up having this kind of amorphous version of self. Because the people around you have an amorphous version of self. So the people you spend time with are incredibly important. And they should be people that are not necessarily super easy to like or super easy to get along with, because they know themselves. That's some food for thought. But I have some other theories about friends in general, and friend groups, and roles and things that you might be curious about having heard this video. So go check this out, and I'll see you over there. Remember, I make these videos to help you actualize your potential. Take care of yourself. Ciao.